Jina Amini, the Kurdish girl whose death ignited a revolution. On September 17, 2022, hundreds of women and men gathered in Saqiz, Kurdistan, chanting in Kurdish, "Women, Life, Freedom." During the funeral of Jina Amini, the Kurdish girl who tragically lost her life after being beaten by the Iranian morality police. Women took off their headscarves in defiance of the morality police and the Islamic government in response. This marked a significant moment in the city's history and sparked an outcry of support in Kurdistan and all across Iran. September 17, 2022 was not an ordinary day for Kurdistan. The untimely death of Jina Amini became the spark that ignited a massive revolution which continues to this day in eastern Kurdistan and has extended to cities across Iran. What sets this revolution apart from the others is the prominent role of women in leading it. Women began removing the veil imposed on them, a powerful statement that challenged the Islamic Republic's control. This movement has become one of the largest social and political movements in the contemporary history of Kurdistan, Iran, and the Middle East. The tragic incident involving Jina Amini unfolded on September 13, 2022 at 6 o'clock in the evening when the Iranian morality police arrested the 22-year-old along with several other women and girls near the Haqqani metro station in Tehran. Initially, the officers assured Jina's brother, who was with her, that they would release his sister within an hour of taking her to the Moral Security Police Detention Center on Al-Wazra Street. Tragically, she was not released, and 2 hours later, news arrived that Jina was receiving medical care in the intensive care unit of Qasra Hospital. Eyewitnesses who were arrested alongside Jina reported that the officers brutally beat Jina Amini during her interrogation. Despite fighting for her life for 3 days, Jina Amini passed away on September 16, 2022. The Iranian security services exerted pressure to limit her funeral and burial to just 1 day after her death. However, her funeral and the cemetery where she was laid to rest became a rallying point for those seeking to overthrow the oppressive regime that has governed Iran for over 4 decades. Written on Jina's grave was the phrase, "Jina, you will not die. Your name will become a symbol," which rapidly gained international attention and became a headline in global media. Concurrently, many women discarded the veil and called on both Kurdish and Iranian society to prepare for a prolonged struggle, with female activists at the forefront. The Iranian regime's attempts to suppress activists' protests in front of Al-Qasra Hospital in Tehran proved futile. The protests escalated in Saqiz, Sanandaj, Mahabad, Diwan-Dara, Karaj, and many other cities across the country. Women in Tehran and other Iranian cities initiated protests by gathering in different locations, emphasizing the prominent role of women in these demonstrations. To counter this growing movement, the Iranian police issued a statement that denied any mistreatment or violence against Jina Amini. However, the hashtag Mahsa Amini, the name imposed on Jina's identity, quickly became a global trend of support with over 300 million mentions. As news of the tragedy spread, university students in Tehran, Kurdistan, and other cities joined the revolution on September 18, protesting Jina's killing on university campuses. Artists and prominent figures also joined a symbolic protest against Jina Amini's unjust killing by participating in a hair-cutting campaign. Tragically, some people faced severe consequences. Minu Majidi, for instance, was killed by Iranian forces during protests in Kermanshah. Nika Shakrami, who had bravely participated in the demonstrations, was ambushed by security forces. She mentioned in her last letter that repressive forces were searching for her in Kashwaraz Street in Tehran. Shortly after her arrest, she disappeared, and 10 days later, her mutilated body was presented to her family in Kahrizak for identification. Kurdistan has a history of strikes and resistance. In 1979, the city of Marivan witnessed a critical strike by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards aimed at preventing a rebellion. In the summer of 2005, a major strike unfolded in all Kurdish cities to protest the killing of Shawana Sayyid Qadir in Mahabad. On May 13, 2010, a historic general strike occurred in Kurdish cities, protesting the execution of Farzad Kamangar and his colleagues in Evin prison in Tehran. This resulted in shops and markets organizing the largest strike in Kurdish cities, even prompting some bazaars and labor markets in Tehran and other Iranian cities to join the strike. In the past 4 months, Kurdistan has witnessed 6 unprecedented market strikes. However, the markets in Tehran and other major Iranian cities have not sustained their strikes. Kurdish cities like Sina or Sanandaj and Mahabad experienced clashes between demonstrators and the repressive forces of the Islamic Republic for over 2 months. The Iranian government effectively declared martial law in these cities, resulting in numerous casualties and arrests. As protests continued to spread, the morale of Iranian oppressive forces diminished. Many police and military personnel refused to return to duty and disobeyed their commanders' orders. News of internal conflict and divisions among security forces became apparent. The security forces even needed ambulances and medical equipment to relocate suppression units, fearing the people's resistance. On November 3, during student protests at Amir Kabir University, security forces and the Basiji surrounded the students using colored bullets initially and later arrested or even killed them as they left the university building. The following day, middle school and high school students tore up portraits of the current and former leaders of the Islamic Republic in their schools. They marched through the streets without obligatory headscarves, chanting slogans like "Women, Life, Freedom," and calling for changes in their education system. Following a call to protest the killing of Gina Amini and the rape of a 15-year-old Baluch girl by the Chabhar police chief, a demonstration was held in Zahedan on Friday, September 30. Worshippers who gathered in front of Zahedan Police Station number 16 chanted anti-government slogans after Friday prayers. In response, the government resorted to repression and bullets. More than 100 demonstrators lost their lives in Baluchistan, resulting in what would later be referred to as Bloody Friday. This tragic event did not deter the people of Baluchistan. Instead, they turned their Friday prayers into a platform for protesting the regime for months and displaying unprecedented and historic resistance. On October 8, many teachers in Saqqez visited a blood donation branch as an act of solidarity with the people of Baluchistan and donated blood to those who were injured. They sent blood to the wounded from Black Friday in Zahedan. Banners displayed by the teachers read, "We will sacrifice our lives for our students. Kurdistan supports the martyrs," and "Women, Life, and Freedom." On October 15, a massive fire broke out at Evin prison in Tehran, resulting in the deaths of 4 prisoners and injuries to 61 others. In the days following the fire, 4 more injured individuals succumbed to their injuries, bringing the total death toll to 8. Prisoners inside claimed that the fire had been intentionally set by prison authorities to intimidate political detainees. Amidst ongoing protests, the youth of Tabriz issued a statement on November 22. They mourned all martyrs of the Women, Life, and Freedom Revolution, from Kurdistan to the oppressed students of Ardabil. They declared their intent to continue their fight, street by street and neighborhood by neighborhood, to reclaim their homeland. Demonstrators chanted slogans like "Death to the Dictator" and demanded freedom and the overthrow of the Islamic Republic. On October 22, demonstrators from Europe and the United States gathered in the center of Berlin in response to an appeal from the families of the victims of the Ukrainian plane crash, many of whom were Iranians. Nearly 100,000 individuals participated in this demonstration. Prior to this, in Toronto, Canada, a crowd of 50,000 people organized a massive protest against the repressive policies of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Despite its repressive efforts, the Islamic Republic of Iran was unable to suppress the burgeoning movement in many areas. On October 26, Saqqez once again became the center of the protests. The 40th day commemoration of Gina Amini expanded into protests and solidarity events across most cities. Despite the regime's effort to obstruct the Arbian ceremony, demonstrators organized a large march and a demonstration. The presence of 100,000 people in Saqqez, along with participants from other cities in Kurdistan and Iran who came to pay their respect at Gina's grave, breathed new life into the protests, turning the civil assembly into another stage for the ongoing revolution. International reactions and support from artists, lawyers, journalists, politicians, and athletes for the Jina Amini movement and demonstrators have reached unprecedented levels. A few days later, people blocked their transit route from Bukan to Minadano. In Karaj, Marivan, Bukan, Kermashan, Ilam, Shiraz, and Isfahan, students took to the streets and chanted slogans against the Islamic Republic. In Isfahan, large crowds gathered at night, echoing the anti-regime slogans. Protests continued in Tehran, with the Akbatan neighborhood emerging as the epicenter of the protests. These demonstrations persisted for several months, with slogans like "We do not want monarchy" or "sheikhs" resonating throughout the streets. November 3 became another pivotal day as a rally in Bahasht Sakina commemorating the 40th anniversary of Hadis Najafi, one of the victims of the Karaj protests, transformed into an anti-government demonstration. The people of Karaj blocked the highway between Tehran and Karaj for several hours, chanting anti-regime slogans. From November 11 to November 16, the Iranian regime launched a brutal crackdown on the youth of Bukan, resulting in dozens of protests being shot and in some cases stabbed. Mohammad Hassanzadeh, one of the martyrs, was scheduled to undergo eye surgery on November 13 for injuries sustained during the protests. Shahryar Mohammadi, on the other hand, was ambushed and killed by security forces. On November 16, a 9-year-old Kian Parfalek, a resident of Izzi, was tragically shot dead by government forces while returning home with his parents and younger brother in a car after the Izzi market events. On November 20 and 21, the government turned the city of Juanro into another city of violence. 10 demonstrators were targeted by bullets and machine guns in broad daylight from close range, becoming part of the growing list of martyrs. Additionally, on December 10, as the 40th day commemoration of the Juanro martyrs approached, the government opened fire on participants, resulting in the death of Burhan al-Yasi and injuries to dozens more. In December, the Iranian government executed Mohsen Shekari. His case and name were revealed 2 days before his execution, sparking widespread backlash and outrage. On the same day, the 40th day commemoration of Komar Daraftadeh was held in Piranshad. Komar, a 16-year-old boy who was shot from a close range on October 30, died in the hospital a day later. On the 40th day of his passing, his father urged people not to surrender and resist the oppressive government. On December 15, the detained protester Sonia Sharafi was eventually released on bail after days of resistance and courage in Abadan, Ilam province. On December 26 in Izzi, a large crowd attended the 40th day commemoration of Kian Pirfalek. They chanted slogans against the Islamic Republic and supported Mujahid Karkur, who the government sought to identify as the perpetrator of Kian's killing. On December 27, Aylar Haji's funeral took place in Tehran in the presence of a large crowd. Government forces attacked the ceremony, and Aylar's father accused the Islamic Republic of being responsible for his daughter's death and defamation. Consequently, Aylar's father and dozens of others were arrested. This movement continued to grow, as hundreds of religious teachers issued statements in support of the people and against the government's actions. While the Jina movement was continuing inside and outside Iran, a group of 6 individuals claimed to be leading the movement by signing the Mahsa Charter, which attracted the attention of local and foreign organizations and media. It was an unequal group, with members having different goals that did not take more than a few months to separate and disband. The passivity of this group, as well as the silence of other political movements, dealt a major blow to the Jina movement. While the Jina Amini movement endured for more than 7 months, many officials considered leaving the country. This movement became a bargaining chip for European and American countries in their negotiations with the Islamic Republic regarding their economic and security interests. Although the veil worn by Jina Amini led to her tragic end, it unveiled a government that had been ruled with hypocrisy for years. It exposed a generation no longer willing to accept the status quo, a generation that earned to shape its destiny. According to human rights sources, the number of martyrs in the women life and freedom movement from September 17, 2022 to January 10, 2023 reached 520 martyrs, including 70 children. Baluchistan bore the loss of more than 100 martyrs, while Kurdistan saw over 140 martyrs, marking the highest number of casualties. This revolution, which originated in Kurdistan, ultimately concluded with resistance from Baluchistan. Many individuals have lost their eyesight due to gunshot wounds, and thousands have been imprisoned. Those who managed to leave were among the bravest and most principled members of their generation, sacrificing their lives to secure their most fundamental rights. They stood unwavering in the face of oppression, determined to keep the light of hope alive, even if this meant sacrificing themselves.